Have you ever considered what's truly astonishing? 3 weeks ago, I believed I had everything under control. Yet now it seems everyone perceives me as a monster simply for conversing with my ex. I am 28 years old, and my name is Paisley. Frankly, I find myself weary of the way people respond, as if I have committed some grave offense, when all I did was engage in meaningful conversations with someone who truly listened to me. My fiancé Wyatt has completely lost his mind and turned our rehearsal dinner into chaos over some text messages, and now it seems everyone is rallying around him as if he's the innocent victim in this situation. Yet, do you truly seek the truth? He created this situation for himself by embodying the epitome of dullness and predictability. We had shared 3 years together. Yet the thrill seemed to fade away after merely 6 months. Wyatt certainly met all the criteria that mattered to my parents. He enjoyed a steady career, hailed from a respectable family, and never stirred up any drama or embarrassment. My father adored him, for Wyatt would simply nod in agreement with whatever was said, never daring to challenge anyone's views, embodying the quintessential yes man. My mother often extolled the virtues of my good fortune in discovering a partner so dependable and accountable. Yet there was a truth that eluded everyone around us. Being reliable and responsible does not equate to being thrilling, fervent, or even captivating. For Wyatt, a delightful Saturday evening unfolded with the simple pleasure of ordering pizza and immersing himself in whatever Netflix suggested. He chose to propose in our living room, right after we had finished our Chinese takeout, without any effort to make the moment special or memorable. I just found myself in a moment where a ring was presented, accompanied by the question of whether I would like to embark on the journey of marriage. Truly a picture of romance, isn't it? In the meantime, my friends were receiving these grand proposals, complete with photographers, surprise getaways, and even flash mobs. Yet I acquiesced, for in truth, what other course of action lay before me? At 25, while my friends were stepping into engagements, Wyatt appeared to be the secure choice. My parents were elated, for his family possessed wealth, ensuring he would never bring us shame at social gatherings. The wedding planning commenced without delay, and it was, to be frank, utterly draining. My mother assumed control of the majority of it, which suited me perfectly, as I had more pressing matters to attend to. Yet, each dialogue transformed into discussions of floral designs, culinary selections, and seating plans. Wyatt would merely occupy his seat during these planning sessions, nodding in agreement with every suggestion my mom put forth, never voicing a thought of his own. It felt akin to orchestrating a wedding alongside a mere cardboard silhouette. In that moment, my thoughts began to drift back to Colt. Colt was my former college companion. We were together for nearly 2 years, and truthfully, those were among the most wonderful years of my life. He embodied all that Wyatt lacked. Unforeseen, thrilling, and full of surprises. Each day with Colt unfolded like a thrilling escapade. He would arrive at my apartment under the cloak of midnight, eager to embark on a journey that would lead us to witness the dawn's first light. He would orchestrate unexpected weekend getaways, revealing our destination only upon arrival. Being with him sparked a thrill that my time with Wyatt never could. Indeed, Colt lacked the financial stability that Wyatt possessed, and my parents deemed him too impulsive and reckless. Yet, in the presence of Colt, I experienced a profound sense of vitality. In Wyatt's presence, a creeping sense of ennui enveloped me, as if I were gradually succumbing to the dullness of the moment. When Colt reached out 6 months ago with a simple, "Hey, thinking about you" text, I nearly let it go unanswered. Yet a thought crossed my mind. What could possibly be the downside of reconnecting with a long-lost friend? Our exchanges began casually, a simple back and forth that sparked nostalgia for our college days, as we shared snippets of our lives. It was a refreshing experience to have someone inquire about my well-being and genuinely show interest in my response. Wyatt had settled into our relationship to such an extent that he scarcely paid attention when I shared the details of my day at work, or expressed the concerns that weighed on my mind. What stands out about Colt is the way he truly focused on me, offering real sincere attention. When I confided in him about my work-related stress, he didn't merely grunt and shift the conversation like Wyatt always did. He would pose additional questions, recall specifics from our earlier discussions, and genuinely immerse himself in what I was sharing. In the meantime, Wyatt often found it difficult to recall which department I belonged to more often than not. Colt and I began our coffee rendezvous roughly 4 months back, and I understand how that may come across, yet it was entirely innocent in the beginning. We would gather at this charming little spot in the heart of downtown during my lunch breaks, engaging in conversations that span the spectrum, our jobs, our aspirations, and the dreams we held for our lives. It was truly invigorating to engage in profound conversations once more, as Wyatt and I had drifted away from discussing anything of significance. Our exchanges revolved entirely around the mundane details of daily life, whose responsibility it was to take out the trash, what items we required from the store, and whether his mother would be joining us for dinner on Sunday. In conversation with Colt, we delved into the realms of literature and cinema, shared dreams of distant travels, and reminisced about the innocence of our childhoods. He stirred memories of the person I once was, before I became just one half of this mundane duo. I found myself anticipating these coffee meetings with greater enthusiasm than I did the prospect of seeing my own fiancé. This should have raised a warning sign. Yet I convinced myself it simply indicated a yearning for more intellectual engagement in my life. I wasn't doing anything wrong by having a friend who truly understood me and could engage in a meaningful conversation. The conversation slowly evolved into something more personal and intimate. Colt confided in me that he had never truly moved on, expressing regret over the monumental error of letting me slip away during our college days. He mentioned that for years he had contemplated the idea of reaching out, yet he hesitated, fearing it might disrupt my happiness. Yet, he remarked that he could sense a void in my relationship with Wyatt just by observing my social media presence. Do you realize something? He was not mistaken. I shared countless flawless couple photos, attempting to persuade not only others but also myself that we were truly happy, yet they seemed so contrived and insincere. Wyatt and I appeared to be a perfect match on paper, yet the spark and fervor that once ignited our connection had long since faded. Colt could see past all my facades, and it was a remarkable feeling to be understood by someone who truly recognized the authentic me, rather than just the persona I showcased to the world. I began to linger at my workplace occasionally, seeking the solitude to message Colt without Wyatt's incessant inquiries about my conversations. It wasn't that I had anything dreadful to conceal. Rather, it was that Wyatt became oddly possessive whenever I brought up the idea of having lunch with male colleagues or similar situations. He would often drop these veiled remarks and lay on the guilt whenever I spent time with other men, so I was fully aware he would blow things out of proportion regarding Colt, despite the fact that we were merely friends reconnecting. Maintaining the friendship in secrecy proved far simpler than confronting Wyatt's unfounded insecurities and jealousy. Colt grasped my essence in ways that Wyatt never took the time to explore. Upon sharing my aspirations of perhaps exploring new horizons or embracing life's uncertainties with Colt, he responded with enthusiasm, urging me onward and expressing genuine excitement for my visions. Upon expressing my desire for more adventure to Wyatt, he promptly launched into a lecture about the virtues of responsibility and the importance of saving for our future home and retirement. Can you perceive the distinction? Colt had faith in me and yearned for my happiness, whereas Wyatt merely sought to confine me within his secure yet monotonous bubble, where excitement was but a distant dream. Approximately 3 months prior, the dynamics between Colt and me underwent a profound transformation. As we sat sipping our coffee, he leaned across the table and grasped my hand for just a fleeting moment, yet it ignited a spark that coursed through my entire being. It had been more than a year since I had experienced that kind of spark or excitement with Wyatt. Colt gazed into my eyes, his voice steady as he confessed that thoughts of me lingered in his mind, a love that would endure through the passage of time, even after all these years of separation. I ought to have withdrawn my hand, to have reminded him of my engagement and the wedding I was preparing for. Yet I remained there, enveloped in a sensation of vitality and longing that I hadn't experienced in months. In that moment, I came to understand the profound emptiness that my relationship with Wyatt had instilled within me. Admittedly, I can't say I'm proud of what unfolded next. Yet I won't deny the thrill I felt in every moment of it. Colt and I began to gather with increasing regularity, occasionally even twice within the same week. I mentioned to Wyatt that my schedule was filled with more work, events and girls' nights, yet he appeared indifferent, not even bothering to inquire for details or express a desire to join me on occasion. He would merely nod and return to the mindless game on his phone, a clear indication of just how disengaged he was from our relationship. In the meantime, Colt would send me a daily good morning text, inquiring about the quality of my sleep. He would share amusing memes while I was at work, ones that genuinely brought a smile to my face, and he had a knack for recalling the small details I casually mentioned in our conversations. Upon expressing my longing for those particular cookies from a bakery on the other side of town, he surprised me the very next day by arriving at my office with an entire box of them. When was the last occasion that Wyatt displayed such thoughtfulness and romance? I truly struggle to recall, for he had entirely ceased to invest any effort the moment he realized I was not going to leave. The tangible elements began to unfold slowly and organically. Colt would embrace me a moment longer when we parted ways, or rest his hand gently on my back as we strolled side by side. It felt utterly right and instinctive, as if we were seamlessly resuming the connection we shared in college, a time when joy and passion defined our relationship. 3 months prior, we found ourselves nestled in his car after a cozy coffee date, the rain tapping gently against the windows. We reminisced and shared laughter about days gone by. And then, in an unexpected moment, our lips met in a kiss. And oh my God, it felt as though I was resurrected after an eternity of darkness. I had entirely lost touch with the sensation of being wanted and desired in such a profound way, to have someone gaze at me as if I were the most beautiful and captivating woman in existence. With Wyatt, intimacy had transformed into a regimented, expected, and tedious routine that resembled more of a task than something fervent or thrilling. Yet with Colt, there was an undeniable spark, a vibrant energy that pulsed through every moment. While I understand that it was, by definition, cheating, it hardly felt like it, since the essence of the relationship had long since faded away. For the first time in years, I sensed a profound authenticity within myself, a stark contrast to the hollow routine of this insincere engagement. We began gathering at his apartment rather than in public spaces, where curious eyes might spot us and provoke inquiries. I would inform Wyatt that I was occupied with work or dining out with friends, while I dedicated hours to Colt, engaging in conversation, rekindling our connection, and rediscovering the essence of who I truly was. Indeed, our connection transcended the physical. It encompassed a depth far greater than mere touch. Colt awakened within me the confident, intriguing, and desirable woman I once was, before I found myself ensnared in this stifling relationship that rendered me invisible and unvalued. After what felt like an eternity, a spark of excitement ignited within me once more. Each morning I would rise with anticipation for Colt's sweet messages, carefully selecting my outfit for our meeting, and replaying our conversations in my mind as the day unfolded. In the interim, Wyatt and I existed as little more than roommates, engaging in sporadic conversations about the intricacies of wedding planning and the mundane details of bill payments. The most frustrating aspect was the incessant chorus of voices reminding me of my supposed fortune and proclaiming Wyatt as the ideal match for me. My parents incessantly praised the decision I had made, extolling his stability and reliability, and how fortunate our children would be to have him as their father. Yet they remained oblivious to the reality I faced daily, The way he would retreat into silence at the mere suggestion of a meaningful dialogue, the absence of any true curiosity regarding my thoughts, feelings, or aspirations, and the expectation that I would find contentment in the most meager displays of effort. Colt genuinely sought my perspective on various matters. He appreciated my thoughts, making me feel intelligent, intriguing, and deserving of attention. With Wyatt, I sensed I was merely another task on his monotonous agenda, something he could tick off and disregard. The exchanges with Colt transformed into a steady rhythm that echoed throughout the day. We exchanged messages from the first light of dawn until the final moments of the day. He would send me pictures of various things that sparked memories of me, while I would divulge the intricacies of my day, details I never felt compelled to share with Wyatt, who never seemed to care enough to inquire further or retain what I had confided. Colt understood the intricacies of my daily existence and the realities of my life far better than my fiancée ever did. This was solely because he took the time to truly listen and engage when I spoke. Leaving Wyatt or causing a dramatic upheaval in my life was never part of my intentions. I found myself yearning for a spark that would remind me of my vitality and worth, all while navigating the complexities of mending my relationship or enduring the wedding that had already been set in motion and financially secured. 2 months prior, the landscape of our relationship shifted as Colt began to articulate his vision of a genuine future for us. He confessed that the regret of letting me slip away during our college days had never left him, and witnessing my engagement to another was nothing short of torment for him. He began to inquire whether I was genuinely happy with Wyatt, if I could sincerely envision a future filled with the monotony of a passionless relationship where I felt invisible and undervalued. Honestly, when he framed it that way, I began to reevaluate everything I believed I desired. Was I truly prepared to commit to someone solely for the sake of safety, stability, and parental approval? What of the fervor and thrill, the sensation of being genuinely comprehended and cherished by your beloved? What if we embraced the essence of truly living rather than merely existing? Colt opened my eyes to the fact that I had been accepting far less than what I truly deserved throughout my entire adult life. Yet, I found myself unprepared to entirely dismantle all that I had constructed. The wedding was meticulously arranged, deposits secured, and invitations dispatched long before. Ending things with Wyatt would entail letting down my parents, navigating the tumult of family drama and awkward inquiries, and facing the daunting prospect of beginning anew at 28. It was an experience that engulfed me in a wave of emotions, overwhelming, terrifying, and, to be frank, almost beyond the realm of possibility to envision. I maintained both relationships, believing I could unravel the complexities after the wedding, somehow. Perhaps once Wyatt and I were truly married and established, we would deepen our bond, or perhaps I would discover a way to part ways with Colt without unraveling all that I had painstakingly constructed with Wyatt and our families. It was then that Wyatt began to harbor suspicions, growing increasingly peculiar about every little detail. He started to inquire excessively about my whereabouts and the company I was keeping. He would drop these veiled remarks about my apparent distraction lately, or how I always seemed engrossed in my phone messaging someone. I expressed to him that his behavior was rooted in paranoia and control, emphasizing my need for space to breathe and cultivate my own friendships and social life, a sentiment that was undeniably genuine. He exhibited a possessiveness and jealousy that lacked any justifiable foundation. Perhaps there was a rationale behind it, yet he remained oblivious to that fact, rendering his actions both unreasonable and stifling. His unrelenting skepticism and probing inquiries stirred within me a sense of defensiveness and irritation, and thus our quarrels escalated far beyond anything we had previously experienced. He would charge me with being elusive and detached, and I would counter by pointing out his lack of trust and his insecurities regarding my friendships. The conflict served to reinforce my sense of validation in choosing to spend time with Colt, as they illuminated the profound incompatibility between Wyatt and me as individuals. Colt never doubted my autonomy or instilled a sense of guilt in me for nurturing other connections and passions beyond our relationship. 3 weeks prior to our wedding, the most terrible fight unfolded. Wyatt discovered a receipt in my car from a downtown restaurant and began to question me about my visit, given that I had mentioned working late that evening and picking up something quick near the office. I mentioned having dinner with a coworker after putting in extra hours to wrap up a project, yet he persisted in probing for further details, as if he were on the case. He inquired about the identity of the coworker, questioned why I had not brought it up earlier, wondered why I hadn't extended an invitation for him to join, and expressed curiosity about my silence regarding my friendship with this individual. His interrogation ignited a fire of fury within me, for I am not his possession, and I should not be compelled to justify every fleeting moment of my day as if I were a captive. In that moment, I completely unraveled and confronted him about his controlling and insecure behavior. This possessive behavior was precisely the reason our relationship felt so stifling, making it impossible for me to share anything with him. Just 3 days prior to our rehearsal dinner, I committed what would soon reveal itself as a significant blunder. I found myself engrossed in a conversation with Colt as Wyatt prepared for work, the sound of water cascading from the shower filling the air. As he emerged, I instinctively placed my phone face down on the nightstand, my mind not fully registering the need to close the message thread entirely. The following morning, as I descended the stairs to prepare our coffee, I noticed that Wyatt's phone was lifeless. Without hesitation, he took mine to check the weather, a routine he'd performed countless times before. In that moment he beheld it all, a tapestry woven from countless conversations shared between Colt and myself over the months. I returned upstairs with our coffee to find him perched on the edge of our bed, clutching my phone, his expression resembling that of a person who had just received the devastating news of a tragic loss. Initially, he remained silent, fixated on the screen, endlessly scrolling through a cascade of messages. I reached for the phone, attempting to snatch it from his grasp, but he yanked it back, engrossed in whatever he was reading, his face contorted in a dreadful expression. The stillness in that room weighed heavily, as if it might suffocate me. As he finally raised his gaze to meet mine, his face bore an expression that was utterly devoid of emotion, a canvas of emptiness. He uttered my name as if it were a question, a hint of uncertainty lacing his voice, as though he doubted who I was now or if he had ever truly known me in the first place. He began to read some of the messages aloud, his voice oddly monotone and devoid of inflection. The moments when Colt confessed his love and longing for me, when I admitted that he occupied my thoughts incessantly, when we crafted dreams of reuniting at his apartment. The sound of those private, intimate conversations emerging from Wyatt's lips felt utterly invasive and wrong, as if he were intentionally seeking to wound me by transforming something beautiful into something tainted and shameful. I attempted to clarify that appearances were deceiving, that Colt and I were merely old friends rekindling our connection, and that many of the messages were being misconstrued. Yet, Wyatt continued to scroll, unearthing further evidence that rendered my explanations absurd and empty. Notes exchanged regarding a gathering at Colt's residence, discussions reflecting my feelings of boredom and discontent in my relationship, and the intricate arrangements we devised to meet while Wyatt was occupied with work. I watched as he meticulously assembled the fragments before him, a realization dawning upon me that there was no narrative twist capable of rendering this situation innocent or benign. I resolved to take the initiative, choosing to strike back rather than remain passive while he launched his assault. I explained to Wyatt that this was precisely the reason I had hesitated to discuss my friendships with him. His controlling and possessive nature made it difficult for him to accept my connections with others, particularly men. I expressed that had he devoted more attention to our relationship, rather than assuming my presence, perhaps I wouldn't have sought emotional support and understanding in other places. I brought to his attention the numerous occasions when he had brushed aside my emotions or turned a deaf ear when I sought to discuss the issues in our relationship that were causing me distress. His response was certainly far from what I had anticipated. Rather than raising his voice or reacting with defensiveness or anger as I had anticipated, he simply appeared sorrowful, weary, and beaten down. He inquired about the duration of it all, and as I faltered, reluctant to exacerbate the situation, he suggested that he could simply peruse all the messages himself if I would rather leave him to uncover the truth on his own. I conveyed to him that it had been approximately 6 months, but I took care to stress that it primarily revolved around conversation and emotional intimacy, with nothing truly significant or relationship-altering occurring between us. In my mind, that was indeed the case. Colt and I had yet to share a bed or engage in any actions that I deemed as fully crossing into the realm of irreparable mistakes. Yet, when Wyatt inquired whether I had been physical with Colt, I found myself unable to fabricate a response, especially with the weight of months of evidence resting in his hands. I endeavored to downplay it, insisting it was merely a handful of kisses, that they held no significant weight or posed any danger to our bond. Yet he stumbled upon the messages in which Colt and I expressed our undeniable chemistry, and the longing we felt for each other's touch and closeness. It was at that moment that Wyatt utterly succumbed to madness. He hurled my phone across the room, and it collided with the wall, shattering into a multitude of fragments. He expressed disbelief that he had been preparing to dedicate his entire life to someone capable of deceiving him for months, all the while engaging with another man in secret. He expressed that he felt utterly foolish for placing his trust in me, for believing I was the person he envisioned marrying. In that moment, I unleashed my thoughts upon him, articulating precisely how I felt regarding his involvement in this entire debacle. I expressed to him that had he been a more attentive fiancé, one who truly made me feel cherished and valued, perhaps I wouldn't have found myself so susceptible to the affections of another. I expressed that this entire predicament was equally his responsibility as it was mine, for he had grown lazy and complacent in our relationship, taking me for granted and presuming I would remain content with his bare minimum effort indefinitely. In the aftermath of our explosive confrontation, Wyatt hardly uttered a word to me for the subsequent 2 days as we approached our rehearsal dinner. He shifted his belongings to the couch and began departing for work at an unusually early hour, seeking to evade any encounter or conversation with me. I made countless attempts to engage him in conversation, to articulate my perspective and illuminate the reasons behind the situation, yet he would simply turn and walk away the moment I began to speak, as if I were a toxic presence he could no longer tolerate. It felt as though I was cohabiting with an utter stranger, one who harbored a deep-seated animosity towards me. It truly seemed unjust, as I was making an effort to resolve our issues, while he resorted to silence, retreating like a petulant child. I believed he simply required a moment to digest everything and find his composure, and that in due course we would navigate this entire turmoil before the wedding. We had already dispatched all the invitations. Both our families were arriving from different states, every detail meticulously arranged and fully funded. Surely, he wouldn't cast aside 3 years of our shared journey, and the promise of our future for mere text messages, and a handful of innocent encounters with an ex-boyfriend. The rehearsal dinner unfolded at an exquisite restaurant, a choice meticulously arranged and financed by my parents well ahead of time. Our families would be present, along with the entire wedding party and our dearest friends. Essentially, everyone who holds significance in our lives. That evening, I devoted additional moments to my preparations, yearning to rekindle Wyatt's memories of why he had once loved me, and perhaps begin to mend the wounds left by our recent clash. I donned the blue dress that he had always declared his absolute favorite on me, meticulously styling my hair and makeup just as he had consistently praised in the past. Upon our arrival at the restaurant, he exhibited a veneer of politeness, yet remained emotionally distant, merely performing the role of a good fiancé without truly engaging with me or those around us. I made countless attempts to draw his gaze from across the table, to flash a smile and maintain the facade that all was well between us, yet he scarcely glanced my way throughout the night. My father delivered a beautiful and heartfelt toast, embracing Wyatt as he welcomed him into our family, expressing his pride in the man I had chosen to marry. Amidst the clapping and smiling faces, the flash of cameras capturing fleeting moments, I found myself momentarily believing that perhaps we could transcend this tumultuous phase and forge ahead together in our lives. Then Wyatt rose from his chair. Initially, I imagined he would deliver a heartfelt speech, expressing gratitude to everyone for joining us on this momentous occasion, perhaps even offering an apology for his recent odd and distant behavior. He expressed his gratitude to everyone for their presence and mentioned that he had crafted a special presentation he was eager to share with the group. Before I could fully grasp the unfolding situation or attempt to intervene, he had inexplicably linked his laptop to the restaurant's projection system, typically reserved for business presentations. In an instant, the most intimate screenshots of my text exchanges with Colt were projected onto the wall, laid bare for all in the room to witness. My innermost thoughts and emotions, magnified for our entire wedding party to peruse, resembling a scene from a rather unfortunate film. Messages filled with my expressions of boredom and a sense of unfulfillment in my relationship, where Colt professed his love for me, declaring he couldn't imagine life without me, and where we crafted plans to reunite and share moments together. Every individual present in that room bore witness to it all: my parents, his parents, our siblings, the wedding party, family, friends, everyone. The ensuing silence was profoundly devastating and utterly horrific. I observed the transformation of my parents' expressions, shifting from bewilderment to astonishment, and ultimately to utter embarrassment, unfolding before my eyes. Wyatt's family wore expressions of utter disgust and shock, as if they had just unearthed a dark secret about me, revealing a criminal or wretched nature. Beneath the surface, my bridesmaids gazed at me as if I were an unfamiliar figure, a total enigma who had been deceiving them about my true self. In a composed manner, Wyatt declared to the gathered crowd that our wedding was officially off, expressed his gratitude for their presence, and exited the restaurant in silence, leaving me behind, my life in utter disarray. The aftermath unfolded into a haunting ordeal that continues to linger, even 3 weeks on. My mother was overcome with emotion, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to catch her breath, prompting my aunts to rush to her side and guide her to a chair. My father appeared as though he wished to shrink away beneath the table, seeking to vanish entirely from the weight of his embarrassment. Individuals were capturing images of the projection screen with their phones, a scene unfolding until the restaurant staff eventually discerned how to deactivate the entire system. Whispers filled the air, and eyes were fixed upon me as if I were a creature of the night or a harbinger of chaos. This was my personal relationship and my own venture, entirely separate from their concerns. I endeavored with fervor to convey to my parents that the messages were being misconstrued entirely, that Wyatt was acting with malice and cruelty by revealing intimate conversations in such a public manner before all our acquaintances. Yet they were overwhelmed by shock, embarrassment, and anger, rendering them unable to hear a word of my defense. 3 weeks have passed, and my life has transformed entirely, leaving it in shambles. Wyatt has cleared out all his belongings from our apartment and has chosen to ignore my calls and text messages. Even when I reach out simply to retrieve some of my possessions he took with him. My parents hardly utter a word to me, their silence steeped in the humiliation of the events that unfolded before their friends and family. They are seething over the substantial sums they poured into a wedding that ultimately never took place. Approximately half of my friends have fully aligned with him, asserting that my actions were dreadful and beyond redemption, and that he was entirely justified in revealing my situation to the public in such a manner. Some believe he crossed a line with the public humiliation, Yet they still view my decision to text another guy during my engagement as misguided. No one appears to grasp that my quest was merely for a spark of joy and thrill in a relationship that had grown stale and lifeless. I was simply seeking someone who truly valued me and reignited my sense of vitality. Wyatt has moved on to a new relationship, one with a seemingly ordinary girl from his workplace. She appears to lack any distinctive traits and is unlikely to inspire him to evolve or strive for personal growth. In the meantime, Colt has chosen to distance himself from the chaos and intricacies of our situation, leaving me in silence as he ghosts me, unresponsive to my attempts at communication. At 28, I find myself single and unemployed, unable to endure the judgmental gazes and hushed conversations at work. It seems everyone has cast me as the villain in this narrative. But to be frank, I have no regrets about seeking out someone who values me and brings a sense of uniqueness to my life. I regret that everything unraveled so dramatically before my eyes. The most painful aspect is the swiftness with which everyone abandoned me. My own sister has ceased to answer my calls, claiming that I have brought shame upon the entire family. My closest companion from high school confided in me that she cannot align herself with someone who would betray their fiancé and maintain deceit for months on end. Where was all this moral superiority when they were lamenting their own relationships and boyfriends? Out of the blue, it seems as though everyone is portraying themselves as flawless, as if they have never stumbled or erred in their existence. What truly perplexes me is the way everyone is now regarding Wyatt as if he were some sort of saint. Individuals continue to share on social media their admiration for him, proclaiming his goodness and asserting that he truly deserves far more. They seem to portray him as this ideal boyfriend, yet having lived with him for 3 years, I am acutely aware of how dull and emotionally distant he truly was. Yet here I stand, cast as the villain, while others reshape the narrative to portray him as the innocent party. Due to financial constraints, I found myself returning to my parents' home for a while, unable to sustain the apartment on my own. And I must say that has been quite the ordeal. Every time my mother lays her eyes on me, I can feel the weight of her disappointment in her gaze. My father hardly seems to recognize my presence. They persist in remarking on how I discarded the greatest opportunity that ever came my way. In what ways did I tarnish my own reputation and compromise their status within the community? They seem far more preoccupied with the opinions of their friends than with my well-being or whether I'm truly all right. Each family gathering has become a tapestry of discomfort, woven with the threads of shared knowledge and unsolicited opinions about my life choices. The most unfortunate encounter unfolded 2 weeks ago, when I unexpectedly crossed paths with Wyatt at the grocery store. He was accompanied by his new girlfriend, a timid little brunette who toils away in accounting or some equally mundane profession. She clung to him, and he radiated a joy I had never witnessed during our time together. They were entwined in laughter, hands clasped tightly, exuding an air of sweetness that churned my stomach with unease. Upon catching sight of me, he offered no recognition, merely guiding her to a different aisle as if I were a threat he must evade. The pain cuts deeper than I care to acknowledge, for we shared 3 years together, and now I find myself reduced to nothing in his eyes. Last week I made another attempt to connect with Colt, hoping that with everything laid bare, we might finally embrace the possibility of being together, free from the shadows of secrecy and the entanglements that have held us back. Yet, he saw my message and chose to remain silent. It seems that when the situation grew complicated and genuine, he concluded that I was not worth the effort after all. The man who professed his unwavering love for me and envisioned a shared future has simply vanished into thin air. As soon as challenges arose, that truly reveals the essence of his character. All chatter when the atmosphere is lively and thrilling, yet absent when genuine support is required. I find myself seeking opportunities in distant cities, yearning for a change from this place where familiarity breeds scrutiny, and my every move feels under a magnifying glass. Phoenix, Dallas, perhaps Chicago? A place where I can begin anew, free from the shadows of the rehearsal dinner mishap. Yet, even that has proven to be more challenging than anticipated, as whispers have circulated, and a few prospective employers are already aware of the incident. During the interview, one of the interviewers inquired about my approach to managing confidential information and fostering professional relationships, and it was evident that they were well aware of the nuances involved. This entire situation seems to shadow me no matter where I attempt to escape. What frustrates me the most is the apparent indifference towards my perspective and the reasons behind my actions. It seems that many are eager to cast me as the villain, the one who shattered a once cherished bond without justification. Yet, they did not inhabit that relationship on a daily basis, enduring the weight of invisibility, the sting of unappreciation, and the suffocating grip of monotony. They were spared the burden of someone who utterly overlooked their worth and failed to invest any genuine effort into their happiness. Indeed, I have made decisions that caused pain to others. Yet, I found myself struggling to endure a relationship that was gradually extinguishing my very essence. While I recognize that guilt and remorse are expected responses, the truth is that my predominant emotion is one of anger. Furious with Wyatt for choosing to humiliate me publicly rather than addressing the matter privately like a mature individual. Furious with Colt for leaving me in my time of need, despite his vow to always stand by my side. Frustrated with my family and friends for their harsh judgments, unaware of the struggles I faced. Frustrated with the world for perceiving me as a monster, when all I sought was a connection that would reignite my sense of vitality and desire. Perhaps I will remain unwed. Perhaps I will never encounter someone who embraces my history and yearns to forge a future alongside me. Perhaps I am destined to be remembered as the girl who betrayed her fiancé and shattered her own wedding dreams for all eternity. Yet, I take solace in the fact that I remain true to my needs, regardless of how others may choose to perceive it. I refuse to embrace a life steeped in monotony and disillusionment, merely to appease others. If that casts me as the villain in the narratives of others, then I accept that role without hesitation. I would choose solitude and authenticity over being ensnared in a relationship that leaves me feeling lifeless, regardless of how flawless it may appear to the outside world.